The Joe Rogan Experience.
Right.
Now, one of the things that came up real recently was this Jordan Peterson interview with Vice, which, in my opinion, especially when you look at the sound clip, they were talking about women in the workplace and women wearing makeup and high heels and things in the workplace. And I know Jordan very well. I love him. He's a great guy. He came off aggressive there, and I don't know why. I don't know if he's tired of it or if he's digging his heels in. I mean, it was
apparently part of a 2-hour interview,
yes.
which he kind of felt like he was on the ropes the whole time.
Yes, and he also was coming off of that big Kathy Newman interview in the UK, which was like an assault. I mean, the whole thing was just crazy. But he came out ahead on that, and I think it's much easier to make the argument that he didn't come out ahead in the Vice thing, especially in the way that they framed it. But he was talking about women in the workplace, and maybe women shouldn't wear makeup in the workplace, and maybe they shouldn't wear high heels or dresses.
So he did say maybe.
Maybe, yes.
Right? And he didn't.
Right.
He didn't say women shouldn't do this. The interviewer, I can't remember his name.
Kang,
Jay Kang, maybe, said, "So do you think women shouldn't wear makeup and high heels then?" And he said, "Maybe."
Yeah.
And it was, he's thinking.
Right.
He's considering options here. He's not prepared upon first being asked a question to say yes, absolutely, or no, absolutely. This is a sign of a nuanced thinking person.
Yes.
Brain in action in real time.
The problem with the reaction is the exact problem that you're trying to avoid here, though. When you're saying, I don't want to get in trouble here. You preface that, and then you slowly move forward. Whereas Jordan was like, maybe.
Well,
Why are they wearing makeup?
But
what are they doing?
I would
Yeah.
say that the generous interpretation and the evolutionary interpretation of what he said was, look, the Me Too movement is arguing that there can be no sexual signals in the workplace at all, full stop. That's not going to be possible because look at how many other sexual signals there are.
Right.
Makeup, heels. Now the response has been, those aren't sexual signals. I wear heels and I'm not sexually signaling. And to which the evolutionary response is, what heels do is augment sexual signals that you were born with. Whether or not you are conscious of the fact that that is why you were doing it, that doesn't make it any less of a sexual signal.
Right.
And so what Peterson was saying was, if we really are going to accept the argument that all signals of this type need to be abandoned need to be gotten rid of from the workplace, then maybe we actually need to investigate all of the other things that are sexual signals that aren't being talked about right now.
So there are a couple things. First of all, have you seen the clip filmed from the audience of him talking about what happened with that Vice interview?
No.
It's well worth your time. I think it's 7 or 8 minutes of him talking about what happened. I do think Peterson, who I also know, I don't think I know.
Can you give
him
us the cliff notes of what?
Yeah, I mean, the cliff notes are, he said, look, this is how one engages in thought. One advances an idea. It doesn't mean something's going to happen.
Right.
I think he literally says, I didn't say women shouldn't wear makeup in the workplace. I said maybe, and this is what we do. And then he describes, he says, let's agree that I'm going to put forward 10 things that might happen, and then let's agree that none of them are going to happen. So now we can discuss the possibilities. So I don't think we know what the actual interview with Jay Kang looked like, because there was 2 hours of it, and I've seen 15 minutes.
Yeah, why won't they release more of it?
I think they should release the whole thing. I do think what I saw, so we don't know the context,
Right.
which my guess is Peterson's pretty careful in what he says. My guess is the context would be revealing. I think based on the part that we know that he said, because it is in the clips that we've seen, we know something's funny because the editing juxtaposes him seeming to contradict himself, and he's actually pretty careful not to do that. But what he did actually say contains what I regard as at least one significant error. So he says, I do think that, in response to the question of are women hypocrites for wearing makeup to work and then, I don't want to put words in his mouth, but something like demanding not to be
Harassed.
or something like that.
So he's forgetting that many of these signals aren't conscious.
Not only
in doing that.
not conscious, but I saw somebody online discussing this. They made a very good point, one that's actually pretty hard to field. If these are signals, even unconscious ones, if they are sexual signals, why am I wearing one to go to a family reunion? Why am I wearing high heels to go to a family reunion? Am I secretly trying to get lucky at my own family reunion? And the answer is no. This is not a matter. What Peterson said, when, Peterson has done so many interviews, the fact that he says a clumsy thing here doesn't strike me one way or the other. But I don't want to be put in the position of defending that women are hypocritical for wearing makeup and high heels. There are lots of reasons that you have to wear them, including social pressure, including the fact that you are in a landscape of other people wearing them, and if you stand out as being plain in a world of other women who are amplifying these things, it may actually have implications for your ability to earn. So there are lots of reasons that you might do it that have nothing to do with you as an individual trying to signal for sexual attention. It doesn't mean that those things didn't evolve as sexual signals, right? Sexual signals, to us evolutionary biologists, this is no news. I mean, if you're a woman and you've got breasts and you're walking around in the world, you're broadcasting a sexual signal, and that one's completely unconscious and involuntary. It's physiological, right? So the idea that these signals are out there and common should become something we become comfortable with. The fact that males are involved in all kinds of signaling all the time, that the corner office, the mahogany desk, and it's not that a woman can't have a corner office and a mahogany desk, but traditionally speaking, those hallmarks of
Prestige
status.
and resource acquisition.
Yes, those things have implication in the sexual landscape that's very powerful, as does, frankly, humor. The way humor is used has powerful implications in terms of sexual signaling, as does who laughs at your jokes. I mean, if the boss makes a joke, everybody laughs, whether or not it's funny. Why is that? He's got power. They're trying to get ahead.
So we can't get rid of all of this.
We can't get rid of all
cannot
this.
get rid of all of this.
And if we look at something like an engagement ring, right? If you were to analyze an engagement ring anthropologically, right? So there are these stones. Actually, the truth of it is there are these stones that aren't really that rare, but they've been made artificially scarce. And a man will get one of these stones and he will put it on a thing that can be put on a woman's finger, and the size of the stone and the quality of the stone, even though the stone is not actually useful for very much, it is symbolically important, and it is evidence of the woman's worth in some sense. In other words, the larger the stone, it indicates that the man values her at a greater level. I mean, this is an absurd set of signals, and we treat it as if it's just nothing. A woman gets an engagement ring. Maybe if she's traditional, her friends will, look at it and say, oh, that's marvelous. I mean, so we're engaged in all of this archaic signaling anyway. And when you tune into it, it is very jarring. But it does not make sense to isolate one set of these signals and say, look, they're signaling, right? Because those signals are embedded in a landscape of signals that we go through our entire life not realizing that we are making. And the last point I would make is that we also need to recognize that we have a mismatch between personal signaling and broadcast signaling. So it may be that a woman wears something in order to catch a particular male's attention. But the fact that she's wearing it may catch other males' attention. And that fact may confuse the landscape because men in general may take it as a sign that she's interested in something when in fact she's not interested in something, she's interested in someone who happens to be in this landscape. So what I hope is that we will recognize that the thing that we should all agree on is that it is desirable to have the freedom to engage life as you would engage it.